So, top of the list, the top 10 remaining free agents and their landing spots is where we're going to start it off today. So, no particular order with this one. I'm not going to be like, okay, this is my 10, then this is my 9. No particular order. These are just my 10 remaining free agents as of Thursday, 8 p.m. Starting off, we have safety Justin Simmons. Where do you have Justin Simmons landing? Where is his best fit?
San Francisco.
Is that it for every single one?
No, I mean there's a couple that of course I fit to us. We're in the market for a safety. That's a fact. Yeah. I know I've seen him to the Colts and a couple other places, but Jair Brown was a rookie last year. He did really good, but I don't think he's ready to take in the spot, the step up. We lost Logan Ryan. He's back on the cruise ship. And Hufanga is still coming back from a knee injury. You don't know how he's going to bounce back. And even if he does bounce back, having someone like Justin Simmons around, he's not a 33 or 34-year-old safety. He's not going to come at a huge cost. And obviously he's not signed this late into the offseason, like the season starts tomorrow or something crazy. But I just, as a diehard 49er fan, and this podcast 50% stands the Niners, I would like to see Justin Simmons in the red and gold this year. I think he would be a big step forward for us.
So how I did this is I tried to, with some of these free agents that are remaining, there wasn't an estimated contract because some of these guys are cap casualties, right? Like Justin Simmons, who are the other ones, like J.K. Dobbins. Some of those guys they don't have an exact number attached to them. So with Justin Simmons, I tried to guesstimate roughly how much he would make, and then also try to find guys or teams that would fit very specifically this type of player. And I found that the Dolphins is my final landing spot for Justin Simmons. Safety is Deshaun Elliott. He went to the Steelers. Brandon Jones went to the Broncos. So doing this would give him a little swap. They're both gone. And then Javon Holland is in his last year of his deal. So you're not sure where that is going to go. So honestly, I see Justin Simmons probably signing a 1, maybe 2-year deal, especially if he's waiting this out. I could see it a bigger deal for 1 year, at least bigger for a safety in the very least. Miami wants to win now. They're not wanting to win in a couple of years. So, exactly. Good luck. But that's what they want to do. So signing a guy like Justin Simmons is going to, at least they think it's going to elevate them into that position. So a 1-year deal for a really good safety is probably where we're sitting with Justin Simmons. And then next we have Stephon Gilmore. I'll go ahead and take this one first. I have the Eagles. They desperately need to rehaul their secondary. And with some of these, you could say, hey, we have the draft. We can go in and draft a corner. Drafting, you don't want to rely on the draft. You want to have options available to you. So rehauling your secondary and bringing a guy like Stephon Gilmore, Bradley Roby is a free agent. Slot corner Avonte Maddox is got released. Now you have Keely Ringo and then a bunch of old guys, right, who get burned outside of Slay, who's playing at a decent level, but Bradbury's just not a good player anymore. He just got absolutely cooked and torched all year. Having another guy on the outside and maybe being able to walk away from a contract is maybe the right decision for the Eagles because they walk away from bad deals all the time. They sign big names. It doesn't work out. They cut them pretty quick, and they move on to the next thing. Where do you have Stephon Gilmore going?
I would love, honestly, I don't know how likely this is, but I'd love to see him re-sign with the Patriots. I think that he fits what they're doing over there and also can mentor a young Christian Gonzalez. And I just kind of love the idea of that. I love Christian Gonzalez. I've been on him since day one. I thought he had a really strong case at Defensive Rookie of the Year, even with the injury. And I think he's a surefire. I don't know if he's Sauce. I don't know if he's Patrick Surtain. What do they call that guy? P2.
Both.
I don't know if he's those two quite yet, but I just think if you want a surefire guy, and that's what Christian Gonzalez is, and then you bring Stephon Gilmore. I honestly wouldn't rule out the fact that if he signs late in free agency with back with the Cowboys either, because Diggs is still coming off the injury, but I would really like to see him at the Patriots as that in that mentor role. I think he's at the point in his career where he's going to start signing those 1-year deals, a la Darrelle Revis, and I just think that he was really good for the Patriots. So I think that could make some sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think that there's been reports coming out that there is mutual interest there. So it's definitely a possibility that can happen. Now, moving on to the running back position, we have J.K. Dobbins up. You go ahead first on this one. Where do you have J.K. Dobbins landing?
I have to be honest with you. I tried to do a little research on all of this to make more of a nuanced take as opposed to shooting from the hip, and I got through about half. And I did some really good. I did some really good notes on a lot of these guys, but for J.K. Dobbins, I literally just wrote J.K. Dobbins, Cowboys, duh. And so I guess that was my thought process at the time. Like that, the biggest running back need in the NFL right now is the Cowboys. I don't think they have anybody on the roster. And like you mentioned I know you're going to tell me about the Deuce Vaughn or the Turpin or whatever the hell you guys call him, but let's be honest. And you mentioned at the top of this that the draft isn't where you go to fill a super big need. Now, the two running backs at the top of the draft, they're not first round guys, but they are multi-talented guys in the run game and passing game. So I think that could fill a hole, but you also don't want to rely on a rookie to be, if you sign J.K. Dobbins and you draft the rookie and the rookie blazes in camp and looks great, everybody's happy, right? But if you sign the rookie, put those expectations on him, and then, a hamstring strain or something, where are you at now? I mean, honestly, if you guys sign J.K. Dobbins and you draft a rookie, I still think you need to sign someone else also. Like, you need another guy because these injuries happen, especially with J.K. Dobbins. So I think I'm honestly surprised he hasn't signed with the Cowboys already, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this is spoiler alert. This is the only Cowboy spot that I had. A lot of these needs that we have with a lot of these players, it's like, oh yeah, the Cowboys can sign them. But then again, I'm going down the cap space, and I'm like, we just don't have the cap space for some of these guys. You just can't do it. Sorry, moving on. But J.K. Dobbins is one of the ones where we can land him. Obviously, running back is a major hole. Tony Pollard going to the Titans. Rico Dowdle going ahead and re-signing with us. So we have Deuce Vaughn, Rico Dowdle. They're the only healthy running backs on the squad at this point. So Breen, just like you said, J.K. Dobbins, maybe drafting a guy. I'm a huge Trey Benson guy. Other guys want Jonathan Brooks, Blake Corum. He's probably a Charger, but so J.K. is a Cowboy in my mind. At least I hope so. Now moving on to my favorite position, as Drew would put it, the interior offensive line. Connor Williams, I have him going to the Broncos. Connor Williams played center and has played center for the past couple of years. And the Broncos have a hole now with Lloyd Cushenberry leaving in free agency. Connor Williams hasn't signed yet, and I think that the Broncos could probably get him on a cheaper deal, especially since he has been a little injury prone in the past. Get him on a cheaper deal, plug him in for a hole for whatever quarterback is coming in. I think that's probably a pretty good landing spot for him. Where do you have Mr. Williams landing?
Where do you think?
Is it the Niners?
Spoiler alert, this is my last Niners pick for this. I just think it makes a ton of sense. He's not a ton of money. Offensive line is our biggest area concern right now. That's where everybody thinks we're going with our first pick, a Tyler Guyton or a Jackson Powers or the kid from Arizona State. I'm so terrible with names, but I always remember the colleges. I don't know if that's just me or if you're like that also. Thank you. But I'm just like, oh yeah, that dude from went there and he went there and he went there. Maybe it's because they don't play in college very long, so you just kind of remember them briefly like that. But and I just don't really want the 49ers to get wonky and pull the Patriots and draft like a Cole Strange in the second round way too early when they're not ready. So if we signed a player like this and slotted him in at center, we already brought back our center from last year, John Feliciano, who was really good. And then with your first overall pick, you can start doing, you can start looking at corner there. Diamador Lenore is going to need an extension. Mooney Ward is coming up, et cetera, et cetera. So if you fill this role in free agency with a full-time player, then you don't have to rely on a rookie. And I'm not exactly sure how much I love relying on a rookie on the offensive line anyway, if it's not one of these top five guys. Now, there could be some things that are happening. Go ahead.
You see some, I really only think that you see offensive line rookies play a major role on teams if they're really either the line's really struggling and it's a major hole, or it's not a very good team, right? You look at the teams that drafted offensive linemen high last year. they're not very good teams, right? The Steelers, the Bears, those guys don't have very good teams. And if a rookie does play a ton, it's because they have an injury on that line that forces them into that spot. Like a
And that's
Tyler
generally
Smith
not
playing
a
left
player
tackle
that
his whole first
goes.
year.
That's not a player that goes at 31. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
no,
I know you
right,
didn't love
yeah.
the pick when the Cowboys did that, but I'm a firm
Yeah.
believer. We argued all week. I sent you a bunch of stats all week on the Rams and their offensive guards, but I'm just a firm believer that you can find a starting guard in the 4th or 5th round right now if you find a guy that fits your scheme. So I would really like the 49ers to take a peek at this and see if it can make some sense for them. But I don't disagree with the Broncos either. That was a good idea. That's a good landing spot for him.
Next, we do have Jadeveon Clowney. You go ahead and take the reins on this one first. Where is Mr. Clowney going? Probably another 1-year deal somewhere.
Yeah, Jadeveon Clowney is a guy who has basically decided that he doesn't want to do training camp. So I don't expect him to sign anywhere for quite a while. And I think, to be honest with you, it's going to be whatever team has the big edge rusher injury when he's ready to sign. For right now, I'm just going to call it the Dolphins because Jalen is coming off an injury. He's not going to be ready for the start of the season. It doesn't sound like, and they have a hole there. I wouldn't rule out coming back to
Bradley
the Ravens.
Chubb too.
Yeah. But I also think that there's going to be a team who, suffers a injury at his position first week of training camp, second week of training camp, OTAs, whether it be an ACL or an Achilles or something like that. And then that's when he signs. So for right now, I think good fits are the Dolphins or him going back to the Ravens. But I also feel like the team that he might fit best on may not be known right now because they're still healthy at this moment.
Yeah. I have the Seattle Seahawks. Last year's defense struggled a lot, especially with their edge rusher position.
Hasn't he been a Seahawk?
Defense, yeah, he has.
So
it's a defense that's been pushed around. Yeah, it's a defense that was pushed around quite a bit. Also, Mike McDonald from the Ravens went over to the Seahawks, so you have some familiarity there too as well. So Leonard Williams is back on a 3-year deal. So you do also have Mike Morris coming out of last year's draft. Boye Mafe, who I was a big fan of coming out. Super athletic. He's just not a big power guy. Again, this defensive line got pushed around a lot last year. And I think a guy like Clowney coming in, again, it's a competitive team, wants to make the playoffs in a very competitive division. You have the Niners, you have the Rams, you have the Seahawks, and the Cardinals, I guess, if you want to name them. It's a competitive division, and bringing on Clowney to go against those division opponents is going to be very important for them. So I have Clowney going to the Seahawks. But I agree with you, everything you said about him signing late, 1-year deal, someone getting injured potentially. I do think it's going to be a late time signing. I don't think we're going to see this anytime soon.
Sure.
And then next, I have Xavier Howard, cornerback. You did mention the Niners do need corner, and this is my one Niners landing spot. Secondary is pretty glaring need for you guys outside of the offensive line stuff. It's been a pretty big weakness. I mean, you have to decide, just like you always like to say, Logan Ryan off of a cruise ship to play your nickel.
That's a fact, bro.
You have Ward. Isaiah Oliver got signed with the Jets. Lenore and Ambry Thomas. Where are they at right now? Where's Lenore and Thomas?
Lenore's the other outside guy. He's gonna get paid. He played really well last year. He stepped up in a big way. Ambry Thomas is our slot guy. He's improved a lot, but not enough to where you just pencil him in at that position going forward. That's why we signed Isaiah Oliver in the offseason last year. Obviously, he didn't pan out. The Jets have signed him to play safety. So,
if I'm not mistaken, those guys are going to be up for contract after next year. So maybe getting on Xavier Howard more than a 1-year deal might be a good idea. Maybe a 2, so you don't have to worry about multiple corners at the end of this next year. So could end up filling a hole not just for this year, but for the future as well. So that's why I have Xavier Howard going.
Yeah, the Rams have cornerback depth issues just like the 49ers do. But I kind of like the idea of, hear me out here, it's not a need currently, but there's a team that just won the Super Bowl that has a corner on the franchise tag that they may be looking to move, and then they'd have a pretty glaring hole at corner themselves. So I think if you can flip L'Jarius Sneed for draft picks and compensation and things like that, and then sign Xavier Howard to come in and play, especially with a Trent McDuffie and everything you got going over there. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl this year because that defense was amazing, and so I just don't think there's nothing they've done on offense. I know Hollywood Brown is cool and all that other stuff, but there's nothing they've done on offense that impresses me enough to where I think that their defense can take a step back. I think they need to continue on that defensive push, and if they want to get back into the Super Bowl contention next year, I think that could be a good fit for them.
Do you get a first-round pick for L'Jarius Sneed?
That's a great question. I don't think you do with this draft because of how deep the class is. There's corners everywhere. Yep. So why would you trade that first round pick for L'Jarius Sneed and have to pay him when you can just go get? I mean, I texted you. Kool-Aid ran a blazing fast 40 with a Jones fracture in his foot, and he's slated in the back half of the 30s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean,
if not the second.
I think you could easily just swap L'Jarius Sneed for, like, I don't know. If it was,
you look at the level
a different draft. He's first round pick worthy. He's first round pick worthy. I'm with you on that. But to give up that first round pick and pay him when the guys are there anyway, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Kool-Aid's there, Cooper DeJean is there. There's players that are there, and it just NFL teams think of it that way. You know, you trade DeForest Buckner to draft a Javon Kinlaw just because of the money. So, you know, it's just one of those situations where I don't know. I mean, the way the Chiefs are built right now, if you can sign an Xavier Howard to be your number 2 and you can swap L'Jarius for like a third, you know, a fourth this year and a first next year, something like that, maybe that makes sense. I don't know, but they can also pay him off on the franchise tag. That's all guaranteed money, so they could just pay him and keep him this year. You know,
it's true. It's a tough situation because I feel like I know the T. Higgins stuff is looming as well about trade. I think T. Higgins actually might stay this year in Cincinnati. I don't know if Sneed is going to stay in Kansas City though. It feels like Kansas City, and the rumors that are going around is Kansas City is actively shopping the corner for the Chiefs, obviously L'Jarius Sneed. So I think he will get moved. I'm just not sure on the landing spot for that. But moving on to our next landing spots, we have an offensive guard here, Dalton Risner. I reused one team, and it's a team I just mentioned not that long ago. Not the Niners, but their division rival, the Seahawks. On the offensive line, Seattle got wrecked with injuries. Their entire offensive line, Damian Lewis, Phil Haynes, Evan Brown hitting free agency, right? They already hit free agency. Damian Lewis is gone, signing with the Panthers. Evan Brown is with the Cardinals. Haynes can be re-signed, but he is not there quite yet. And Dalton Risner is a better player than Phil Haynes. So I think this is a good landing spot for Risner. Seattle has the money to pay this type of guard at this type of level. I think this is something that might get waited on a little bit longer. Maybe even after the draft, if Seattle can't fill that hole with a Jackson Powers Johnson, because Jackson Powers Johnson doesn't only play center, he plays guard as well. I feel like that gets slipped between the cracks a little bit. But if they can't fill it in the draft, I think you can go after a guy like this, kind of in that next wave of free agency that seems to happen right after the draft season. Where do you have Risner going?
I kind of slotted him in at the Jadeveon Clowney type of somebody gets injured, he gets signed type of thing. The dude has played so many games. He's only missed a couple with injury. He, you know, he's not a PFF star by any means, but he's 28. I think he was on a 1-year, like $3 million deal last year. Reisner is the exact type
Yeah.
of player that makes me scratch my head when you hand the $50 million to the guard. I just wonder, like, how much better is that guy than this guy when you can get this guy? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can give Reisner a 3-year deal, and he's not spectacular by any means. But if you told me that you're going to give this guy 3 years, $14 million, and he's going to start 85% of your games for the next 3 years, what else can you ask for a guard? You know, and
Yeah.
and the Vikings have ran 2 different offenses. Oh, he was only there for 1 year. Where was he at before? The Broncos?
Yes, Reisner was with the Broncos.
I mean, they ran the wide zone stuff last year. The Vikings did, so he's and the Broncos were a power running team before that. So
Yep.
he's played in both type of offenses. Like it's obviously that he can succeed in both ways. I just
Yep.
This seems like this is going to be like a steal, I think, when it finally shakes out, because he's clearly not getting starting guard money. I know that's what he wants. He put on social media the other day. He was like, by the way, I've played 70 games and only missed 3 and this and that and the other. And he obviously wants starting guard money. Clearly the Vikings didn't offer it to him. But yeah, I mean, this is just not to skirt the question, not give you a team without saying the Niners again, but it's just one of those things where he's one of those players, man. He's gonna fill a role, and he's gonna be a good fit wherever he lands.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Tyler Boyd, I'm a little excited about this one. I want to see where do you have Tyler Boyd going?
Tyler Boyd / Odell Beckham Jr. / Hunter Renfrow / Mike Thomas / any other available wide receiver should all sign in LA with the Chargers.
Okay.
That's what they need. They got no wide receivers. Don't miss me with this Quentin Johnson bullshit. Actually, that's a lie. I want Hunter Renfrow to sign with the Cowboys. I think if he got healthy, that could take him over the top. So, yeah. But besides that, Tyler Boyd, I think, would be Tyler Boyd / Odell Beckham Jr. is the Chargers to me.
Yeah, it's a good landing spot. I went on the other side. I went to the NFC, and man, I'm staying in that NFC West for quite a long time, lingering in there. But we're gonna stay in there, and we're gonna go with the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals should sign Tyler Boyd. You look at Kyler Murray when he came back from injury. Your QB 11 for points per game, 10th in expected points per game after returning from your torn ACL. Much of the production came from rushing, which obviously coming off of a torn ACL is pretty impressive. But you look at the wide receivers and the talent that's around him going into next year, excluding the potential Marvin Harrison Jr. Second year wide receiver Michael Wilson, who had a good rookie year, but that's not a guy that you're coming in to step in as a one. You have tight end Trey McBride, another good target, but we're not talking about a guy. We're not talking about Travis Kelce. We're not talking about a George Kittle or a Mark Andrews. We're talking about Trey McBride. They need something else, right? So Tyler Boyd coming in, and then you draft a rookie wide receiver. Again, a Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, depending on how the draft shakes out, you get another guy in there. Kyler can be successful. I am a believer in Kyler Murray. Not everybody is. I think he'll be way more successful this year with a healthy season. No Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not a Cliff Kingsbury guy at all. Unsuccessful offense. He's piss poor. This is where I want Tyler Boyd to go. So, moving on to an edge rusher, I have Kyle Van Noy slotted in to go to the Bears. The Bears finished second fewest in sacks, and is
the rich get richer.
32nd ranked. Yes, 32nd ranked pass rush. Yes, you traded for Montez Sweat before the trade deadline, and he played fantastic. But you need more guys going after the quarterback. What this does for you is it opens up options at that 9th pick. If you want to trade out of it, congratulations, you can. If you want to draft a wide receiver, congratulations, you brought in Kyle Van Noy to push the can down the road a little bit further. Or if you still want to go with an edge rusher, you still can. Kyle Van Noy's not stopping me. So I like Kyle Van Noy to the Bears to bolster up that defensive line a little bit.
Yeah, I think Kyle Van Noy should be a Carolina Panther. I think I think it would be hard pressed for him to want to go play there, but you figure with the
anybody doesn't want to play there.
I mean, they have the biggest needs. You know what I mean? When you talk about they lost their linebacker.
Frankie
Lavu, and then obviously Brian Burns. So they got a big hole there, and they just need excellent, solid players that come in and fill their role. But
Yeah.
then there was another one that I was thinking about, and it was actually with Minnesota and the Vikings because he has played for Brian Flores before. And I thought that, anytime you're a player that's kind of, I feel like this is the fourth year in a row he's been released from his contract. He was with the Patriots. I think he was with the Miami Dolphins at one point. So when you're a player that's kind of trying to gain some footing, I think he might have been with the Dolphins twice, to be honest with you. My memory could be failing me there. But going to somewhere where you're familiar, or maybe go to Carolina and you get a little bit more money than expected, and you ball out because there ain't nothing else out there. That's there's two options there. I think that it would be good for him to, as I've said a couple of times now, wait to just kind of see what happens, wait for a team to get a little bit more desperate, and then maybe pounce on a team's desperation.
Yeah, definitely. And our last guy that you're going to take first is Steven Nelson, Mr. Slot Corner himself. Where is he going to end up?
Yeah,
not the Niners.
No, I think that I think kind of like you mentioned this team earlier, the Philadelphia Eagles make some sense to me. And that's kind of where I see him slotted in. Weirdly, when I was like researching him up a little bit, I saw him linked in like 2 or 3 articles to the Cowboys, and I was just like, that's interesting because they seem like they have a lot of corners. I don't know about your slot corners, but
we brought back Jordan Lewis, and then obviously Deron Bland can play in the slot, depending on what we go with, in the draft.
So I mean, I think the Eagles need any defensive help they can get. I know everybody's slurping them up because they signed Saquon Barkley, but I'm not all that impressed because this is still the team that's entire offense collapsed last year and their defense couldn't stop anybody. So,
yep. And I have the Chargers. Asante Samuel obviously is their shoe-in for CB1, and he's a fantastic player. Everything else needs to go. I don't care what's in that secondary. Steven Nelson is not going to be stopped, or should not be stopped from signing there. You can't trot out who they have. Jasir Taylor, horrible slot corner. You can't trot out Deanne Leonard, 7th round pick, as a starter. You can't do that. The guys who are unproven or have played and they're not good. So Steven Nelson to the Chargers feels like the fit to me, especially with John Harbaugh is building that team in a very interesting way. Should be very defense oriented. They're getting rid of all their wide receivers, and then should be bolstering up that line, almost like he's trying to build Michigan in the NFL. I don't know how successful that's going to be.